Hello everyone, I'm Miranda and today we're going to be talking about the unsolved murder of Karina Holmes. She was a young girl from Sweden. At the time of her death, she was supposedly 19 or 20 years old. Back in 1996, she won the lottery in Sweden, and it was the equivalent of $1,500. In 1996, $1,500 was a lot. So she decided to travel to the U.S. Because the town she lived in Sweden was very small and very boring, and she just kind of wanted to get out, and see the world, or at least America. She decided that she was going to go to Boston and work as an au pair for a couple there. An au pair is like a nanny. So she ended up going to the U.S. and she went to work for a couple named Frank Rapp and Susan Nichter. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. They had 2 young kids that she was caring for. After a while, she started writing letters home saying that she was not happy, that she was tired of cleaning all the time, that it was just not what she thought it was going to be moving to America. During the week, she worked, but on the weekends, her boss, Frank, let her stay in his studio apartment that he used during the week to work at. It was central to all of the nightclubs and, the life of Boston. So on June 21st, it was a Friday, in 1996, she decided to go out to the clubs, and she met up with 3 of her friends, and they went to this bar named Zanzibar, and it was a popular nightclub there. She had a fake ID, so she had no trouble getting into these bars and these clubs all the time, so she was first in clubbing. She reportedly drank a lot, danced a lot, and she eventually wandered off from her friends, but they had still seen her around the club that evening. Early that morning, she was still in the club, but she had gone to the bathroom and she fell asleep, or essentially passed out, and they kicked her out of the club around 3 a.m. After she left the club, she was basically just wandering around drunk in the city of Boston at night. There were reports that she was dancing with a homeless man. There were several witness statements saying that she was getting into a taxi or being forced into a taxi. It's unclear exactly what that was about. There were several people that saw her talking to this man that they all knew because he was very distinctive. His name was Herb Whitten, and he was really tall, or large, and he dressed up his dog in Superman clothes, supposedly to attract women or something. After that point, it gets a little iffy and don't really know the timeline of things. It is believed that Herb Whitten guy is the last person to see Karina alive, apart from her killer. There are different reports of how long she was missing before her body was discovered. It's said between 12 hours to 2 days that she was missing before her body was discovered. It was discovered by a homeless man who was rummaging through a dumpster for cans and stuff to, sell, I guess. They have those can machines or something. It was in the Fenway neighborhood of Boston. During digging through the dumpster to find the cans, he found an arm. He went to the police station immediately and reported finding the human arm in the dumpster. As the police made their way to the dumpster, they found half of her body. It was the top of her. The lower part they still haven't found that part. Yeah, bottom half of her body, nowhere to be found, but they found the top half. The part of her body that they found was perfect. It was in perfect condition. There was no dirt or anything on her body. It appeared that they had scrubbed off the makeup that she was wearing. It had been determined that her cause of death was strangulation due to the markings on her neck. She had redness on her wrists, which indicated that they'd been tied at some point. Other than that, there was no bruising or cuts or any signs that she had fought back against her killer. Now, the suspects, Herb Whitten, obviously, since he was the last person she'd been seen with, he was considered a suspect just briefly, but he had a strong alibi. He'd been driving back to Andover, and I don't know if I'm saying that right either, after he had spoken with Karina, and while he was driving, he got a speeding ticket. It didn't fit in with the timeline of the murder, that he would, immediately go home and then come back and kidnap, it just didn't make sense. It didn't fit in with the timeline. But a year after Karina's murder, Whitten committed suicide. The employers, Frank Rapp and Susan Nichter, were also investigated as suspects. There were reports that Frank Rapp was referred to as creepy. They didn't have an alibi. They had no way to cover their own asses for the night she was murdered. The following Monday, after her body was discovered, I guess, there was a call that there was a fire at the property of Frank and the wife. I can't remember her name right now. But anyway, there was a dumpster fire. So they investigated it. The ashes were tested for human remains, but they didn't find anything. There are several theories. Since Karina was killed, there have been a lot of theories about, what happened and all that. But nobody can prove anything. In one of her letters home to her parents, she wrote, or it was to a friend, that something terrible had happened, which she would tell them when she got home. I guess she was planning to go home at some point. Some believe that this thing she spoke of that was something terrible was what led to her being killed. There's a common theory that seems to be thrown around by several people that Karina's body was cut in half, the lower half hidden away to conceal the fact she'd been sexually assaulted, and her killer wanted to be sure no traces of DNA could be found, but that is to say, if her killer was even a male. It could have been a female, it could have been a woman from the club, it could have been one of her friends, you never know. They knew how to cover their tracks because they washed her completely clean. There was no evidence, there was no DNA, there were no marks that would be distinctive other than her cause of death and the red marks on her wrists. But whoever did it knew how to dissect. It kind of like with the Black Dahlia case, he clearly knew what he was doing. I don't want to genderize killers, but they knew what they were doing, and it seems very likely that whoever mangled her body knew exactly what they were doing, because it was done really well and it was clean, and they wanted to get away with it, and so far they have. When she was murdered, she actually had been dating a police officer. Some people say that he killed her and got away with it because he was a cop and was able to have other people, covering up for him, but nothing really came from that either. There have been a lot of comparisons between her and the Black Dahlia just because of the fact that the murder has not been solved yet and the fact that she was cut in half. But as closely as they are, as similar as they are, this is still kind of a not well-known murder case, which is weird to me. But, yeah. To this day, nothing has ever come from the investigation. Not exactly sure where the two employers are at this point, but we do know that the Herb Witten guy killed himself, and that to me raises like a huge red flag. Like, it's sad that he killed himself, but I hope it wasn't because he committed this murder. But I mean, he had the alibi with the speeding ticket and everything, so it's just weird to me. That's about everything on this case. You're free to look into it more. It's a really interesting case. But yeah, that is the story of Karina Holmes. And if you like this video, please subscribe and thumbs up and hit the little bell that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. But yeah, hopefully next time it'll be a little bit longer. If you have any cases that you'd like me to cover, just comment or send me a DM. I will link my Twitter, or you can at me. I will link my Twitter down below, and thank you guys.